Hello, everybody. This is Niralisha, and I believe I'm live. And I hope you can hear me loud and clear. And you're going to see me in a minute. So I welcome you all once again to the episode 3 of Reintroducing Buddha from a New Perspective with Niralisha. And I'm going to begin in a short while. So stay with me. Stay with me. I'll see you in a minute. So how are you all? And I hope you could really enjoy the first 2 episodes of Reintroducing Buddha from a New Perspective. And hello! So here we begin the stories. Now, one of the things that I would like to add is this, this being that we're talking about, the Lord character of Lord Buddha. Well, he's not something that, anybody can define in few words, in few perspectives. There's a lot more to uh, him than what we can perceive, understand, know from the limitation of few words. So there's one of uh, I would like to suggest to you all that instead of just being focused on my words, and this is something I share with everybody who also are part of my Philosopher's Stone book club, is that there is a different energy that flows through while I have such conversations, and stay connected to that energy so that uh, you receive the guidance, the message, or the part of recognizing him, Buddha, in the way you require in this moment. Because the appearance of such being is to show people what is meant for them in this present timeline, which may be different than the timelines of the past Buddhas or past such divine beings, and show people the way to be, live in the true sense, in harmony with everything that they are, and in harmony with everything that is on the earth, every being, um, every element on the earth. Um, so, well, uh, that's what it is. So stay connected to the energy more than just what I say in the words. Also, at all, you find me a little slower at some places. Maybe there is something that I'm connecting to and trying to receive information and then pass it on. So, well, that also can happen. So just be patient with me and enjoy the episode 3. So I would like to start from the part and a little recap of what happened to Buddha in the last episode. Buddha, once when he was left alone, happened to go into deep state of meditation in episode 2, and that's where he shared the first layer of amnesia, the illusion that everyone experiences while they're born on the earth. And the idea of enlightenment is that you remember who you are in full entire in the entirety, uh, while you're on the earth, not just in the spirit world, because that's where you may remember, because there are no layers of illusion over there. So you may remember who you are uh, more clearly. But when we are here on the earth, we forget. We forget, our past lives. We forget, what we learned in the previous lives. But when you shed this layer of illusion, you become awakened. So, it's said that the first layer of gnan was that got lit up in his inside, in his universe, during that specific incident. And that turned out to be very magical, which also made Shuddhodana a little worried about um, how, how to keep Buddha more stay put in the palace, and not, for his quest and his purpose to become the enlightened being that he was meant to be. So he was being married to Yashodhara at the age of 16, and that's where Buddha was also trained to, um, trained to be skilled in some 18 skills to be a great monarch of the time. But in all of that, Buddha still, has questions to, questions about life. Now, one of the things that I would like to add is that, as parents, sometimes, especially the parents of such beings, who are born as a purpose, they feel that, everything they're doing to keep him in the four walls of the palace. They're protecting him. They are keeping him secure. They're making sure that he doesn't run away. He doesn't leave the, his legacy of being a monarch. But in reality, uh, every aspect and every facet of his life is basically, taking him, like such beings, one step closer, with every action, with everything occurring in his life, closer to what, they're supposed to do in the future. So all of this was just, the first step to what he had to become at the end. And so, the wife that was chosen for him, Yashodhara, well, she turned out to be such a beautiful companion for him. Well, she knew that, there are certain aspects of life that she was aware of, the sickness, the ills of the world was not supposed to be presented to her husband. Those conversations were banned for, her to have with her husband, which is typical of a married couple, which, they share, uh, what how they see the world. But it wasn't possible for her. But then there were things that, they shared, um, as husband and wife, which literally prepared Siddharth in a way, which supported Siddharth in a way. So basically, she was a beautiful support, while, Siddharth chose to be in, in the world, studying, what is required in the present moment to this, to the mankind in that era. So the idea is, when they choose to stay in the world, their purpose is to study, you know uh, where humankind is going, the kind of, and the layers of illusion. And this happens in a very, if not on the cognitive level of, of the mind, on the intelligence, but it's happening deep within. So, they have questions, they have the way they respond to, any situation in front of them. All of that reflects, how they are inside. And um, deep down, I also want to add that, they're like greatest seekers of truth. So whatever comes in front of them, they just don't want to come to an immediate solution to it, or, just try to firefight the thing. They want to always move to what is greater, what is higher, and what is in the long term benefit of everybody, so they include everybody with a single action, single thought, with a single decision. So they're supposed to be the torch bearer, and so that's how they function. Well, it's beautiful, the way the information is coming. And also their life is not as ordinary as anybody's, and that's why we always talk about their life stories, and we always feel that, this kind of things can only occur in the lives of great beings, because their life is not ordinary. Their life is supposed to be extraordinary. And um, the way they live, you know, is also like, it's different. It's not supposed, it's not like, how everybody lives is how they're supposed to live, how everybody thinks, the kind of routines, or the structure of the world has, is the kind of routines that they have. Uh, they are here to create a new path, a different path. And so every element of the day, every element of their life, is different. And I don't know how to describe it in just few words, but I hope that you get it, that it's different. And so they spend the days talking about, how to have, how to rule, or how to do greater for the kingdom, as Yashodhara and Siddhartha as husband and wife. um, Now, meanwhile, uh, there is a deep down quest uh, that is surfacing within Siddharth's universe, in his world, in his mind, coming again and again. And every time he sat in his window and outside, on his balcony, and looked at the horizon, looked at the world outside the palace walls, he felt that there are some things that, he is calling him from that space, or there are some things that he will find only if he travels outside the gates. And so after many years, finally he, for the first time, he thought that, let me travel in the outside of the gates of palace. And he went to his father, and for the first time he asked for his permission, that if I could just, if I'm supposed to be a great monarch, I would like to visit once, how my kingdom is like, uh, how the people are like, and how I'm going to be with them as a king. And it did, for Shuddhodana, it did feel like a right approach as a king. He did see that, he was settled, he was happy in his, married life. Yashodhara was, taking care of him really, really well. And so there was, he literally thought that, now that entire thing that he was worried about, that he might just, leave him, may not be that much of a concern. And so I said, fine, let's arrange for your visit once, and you can see and visit your kingdom. He Before all of this, like before he arranged for his entire trip outside the palace walls, he made sure that every sick person, every old person, every pain, any sort of a painful and suffering that's occurring, should not be on the path of Siddharth's chariot. So he cleared everything. He made sure that nobody passes through that road. Uh, Even he instructed uh, his charioteer, the young guy whose name was Channa, to use the words of wisdom, and make sure that he follows this path and go nowhere else. And Siddharth was excited when he was told that, today is the day when he's going to visit his kingdom and meet his people. He's going to be out there. And somewhere deep down, he knew that something exciting is going to happen, something great is going to occur today. And so he's ready. He settled down in his chariot. He and Channa started. Um, cross the walls of the palace. And well, I would like to add here that, so Shuddhodana had made about three different seasonal palaces for Siddhartha to enjoy his worldly life. The summer palace, the monsoon palace, the winter palace, things like that. So, finally he is out there enjoying the sense of freedom, enjoying the nature outside the palace, which is grown so naturally and organically. The mountains felt different, the sound of the waterfall was different. The faces of people which were like who had never seen, these are not the people who would visit him in his palace. So meeting them and their response to him, all of this, he did feel it was the right thing to do, to be out here and meeting people like this. Now suddenly, and this is where the divine intervention begins. When you're meant to be, you're meant to be, and if you're supposed to see something, you see it either how. And so this is where um, suddenly there appears an old man, body, and this first sight of him, amongst appreciating all this beauty and all, the first sight of this old man, and Siddharth was shaken. He could sense his kind heart, could sense there's pain in his body, there's pain in his heart, and also this kind of thing he was never presented to in his palace life. So what is this thing? This was a childlike curiosity that came out of his heart, and he asked Chinna, Chinna, who is this creature? And what's he doing here? He couldn't even recognize that this is, um, the grown version of a human being, because that reality was not his reality. That reality was never shared with him, that people grow old and then people could, the body could, have this kind of deformities. So Channa said, well, my lord, this is called old man, and this is how the life emerges. You're a child, then you grow young, like how we are, and then the body also moves to the stage where it turns old. The color of the hair, the feel of the skin, the way of the bones changes structure, and it's possible that we may even look like this. And he said, we means even I would grow old, even you would grow old, even my father would grow old, even my wife would grow old. And Channa said, yes, my lord, we all are meant to grow. If we are born, we all will be old. One day we will be. And this, kind of crashed the very foundation of all that he had learned. And, also everything that he was not exposed to kind of came, that kind of turned into his favor, because when you see something for the first time that you've never experienced, it kind of you know brings a level of inquisitiveness, and he being the seeker, it brought him to a totally different level. And I said, oh, this reality of life I was totally unaware of. That means my kingdom or my life is not the way I have been asked to look at. There is something more here. And as he's busy working through this questions and inquisitiveness, there happens another thing that came in front of him. He happened to see a sick man. His he was in pain. The tears were falling down his eyes, and he was um, being Buddha again. He could sense that there is something wrong with this guy, and he is in immense pain. He was suffering, though he didn't know the word suffering. He couldn't see that pain. And so he asked Channa to stop the chat, and he said, like, what's going on with this person? Why there are tears in his eyes? Why is he, crying? And, he said that had never seen anybody crying. That was a bane again in front of, him. So it was heart shattering again for him. So first, shaking out the foundation, and then again, presenting a different reality where somebody is sick. And Channa said, "Well, my lord, this is a sick man. And, in life, sometimes, this is also part of life. You grow old, you can also be sick." And he said, "The sickness can occur to anybody. It can occur to you, it can occur to me." He said, "Yes, it can occur to anybody." And that uh, kind of added to uh, the quest of what Siddharth had in his mind, that, oh, the body could be old, the body could be sick, and he could relate that this is something called suffering. There is a pain which he had never seen. And as the chariot is moving forward, while Siddharth is still, wondering about what he'd seen in the last two situations, suddenly he is met with another incident where he sees, now all of these people were asked not to be in front of him. Such people were asked to, kind of go in a different place. They were shifted. But it was just like, this is exactly what divine intervention is, that, things are presented in front of you in a more divine manner, so that things wake up within you and you remember your call, your purpose. And so this guy, so as they move forward, Siddharth happens to ask Channa to, stop the chariot, as they see your family crying like crazy. And Siddharth says, "Why are these people crying? What happened?" I said, "My lord, it seems that somebody's died in their family." And Buddha said, "Well, what is dying?" Because, he was never presented with the idea that life ends at some point. And I said, "Well, sir, we take birth, we grow young, we can be sick, we grow old, and ultimately the body, the soul leaves the body, and the person doesn't move anymore. And ultimately, the body is turned to ashes. And that was another ignite something greater within his heart, by bringing an intense level of chaos. So he understood three great truths of, his world. One, that, you can grow old, things, the way you look, the way you feel, the youth can go. Two, you can be sick, some sort of a disease may enter your body and you could be traumatized by it. And because of that, there are so many things that you will not be able to attain, or you'll not be able to do. And because of that, you will suffer intensely in your mind, in your body. Uh, and the third thing, that you may just leave your body. So all this while he thought, this is me, my body and me are the same. He said, okay, fine, there is something more here. uh, the body, it merges with the ashes and the soul departs. So how is this happening? Now that kind of ignited something in him. And as this was going on in his mind, the fourth incident occurred in front of him in this journey. And that was, he saw a sadhu, a saint who was in peace, sitting under the tree. And he looked really, really serene, calm, and looking at him, Siddharth had another sense, another feeling. His kind heart understood that this guy doesn't seem to be in any sort of suffering. There's some different vibration here. So he asked Channa to stop and says, "What is he doing? He looks different. I've never seen a person like him too." And Channa said, "My lord, this is Sadhu. He is basically connecting to this deeper part within himself, the soul, to be free from, these kind of suffering that we saw back there." And he says, "Okay, so all of this is also part of life. And then there are people who also look for something beyond the suffering." And he looked at this being, and he being obviously, meant to be Buddha, obviously felt, different aura around him, which he hadn't seen in his palace. And he said, well, that is something that I would like. This is something that I would like to experience. Whatever he is looking for, whatever he is connecting to within him, how do I find that? How do I, go there? And that kind of, brought him to understand that there is something beyond being a king. Even a king can suffer, a king can be sick, a king can grow old, a king can die, and there is something which doesn't die, that is eternal. And that's where there is a sense of peace. That's, if anybody gets to that, he came to this conclusion even without Channa having to explain all of this to him. I would like to go to that thing, which is more greater than being king, because king can be, even if he has won many battles, ultimately there may come a day where he could be old, or the sickness may come and he would die. So he hasn't defeated death yet. He hasn't defeated his fear of death yet. And so I would like to go beyond. And if I could go beyond, then maybe the people I love and care for, I might be able to give them that truth. So this is where the seed of leading a different path for people he loved and cared for, kind of came to fruition. Small petals kind of came from beneath the surface of the ground, and it showed itself to, first obviously to him, and then he went back to the palace. And obviously before discussing it with anybody else, he had his own internal churning and inquisitiveness, and questions were running in his mind on how he would, getting clarity for within himself whether he really wants it. And then one fine day he went to his father and he asked Shuddhodana, that that you never taught me about these facts of life. These suffering exist in the world, you never talked about it. And you know we could be defeated by death, sickness, or old age, and I want to go find that truth which defeats the death itself, something which is eternal. And his father said, no, 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 my son. He's still trying to hold on to him, and he's still saying, no, my son, you will not die, you will not get old, you will never be sick, I will protect you. But he said, Buddha asked him, like, Siddharth, basically, he asked his father that, okay, if that's possible, then you tell me and promise me that you will never die, you will never grow old, and you will never be sick. And this is where Shuddhodana could not promise him. He couldn't, say a word. And so this is where Buddha received his answer that, he's ultimately he'll have to go, look for what he's finding, even though his family, his people do not understand this, even if, his father has a different path decided for him. There is something beyond, which is his truth, which he needs to go and find. So now, see, this is a place where one requires the sense of great courage. And the soul is incarnated, and they're called Buddha because they have the courage to follow their path against all the odds of the family, against all the odds of their loved ones, against all the odds of their desires of what they ask of them. But also they know that this is the true, this is why they are here, this is the true purpose, and this is why they are here. Deep down they know that it's not like you want to do something wrong, and they're going against the odds of what the family wants. So this is a different kind of having different kind of courage to stand for what is true for you. And that's exactly what we also get to hear and learn for from Buddha, his teachings and his entire life. uh, that he left for people to learn from. So, well, this is what happens. Now, on the side, aside all of this, uh, Yashodhara, and this is again a less known fact. While Buddha is going through his internal transformation of, what and how he's going to be uh, in the coming future, what choices he's going to make in the future, Yashodhara somewhere again, another level of divine intervention. Yashodhara had some dreams about who Buddha is, I mean Siddhartha is, and what is he meant to do for the world, and somewhere preparing her from the inside, and kind of also helping her remember that she is not here to keep him to her, but rather to contribute and support him in his journey to move forward and find something that is for everyone. And even though there are no mentions of how how Yashodhara kind of the conversations they had after Buddha had this experiences, this four signs that presented itself to Siddhartha. um, I do have a sense that I'm sure there were conversations where Yashodhara had been a really, really wise woman rather than being a wife, and she literally expressed how she would like him to go and look for whatever his heart desires. And then obviously we know, how the journey begins for Siddharth. Uh, in some part of the stories in the life of Buddha, that says that his son was born, um, and then after that Buddha decided to leave um, his family life and his kingdom. And there are some stories that says that Buddha left, and his son Rahul was born after he left the palace. So, well, both could be the truth, but eventually, when one has to go, no worldly ties and no layers of illusion can tie you, because here it's not about renouncing. The word renunciation is something, and while we're looking at it in a different perspective, um, the renunciation is a word where something is done through from the space of arrogance and ego, where, oh, I'm letting go of this because then I will seek this. Well, it didn't happen for Buddha. You know he his sense of seeking something greater were uh, more stronger and deeper and intense than what he was leaving behind. So in his entire mindset, or in his entire understanding, he never had that he's leaving something great, that he's leaving the luxuries of life, and he enjoyed without rejecting and resisting the life that he had a good time, being in living in the palace. But when he had to go, he knew that he is going for something way bigger than what he's leaving behind. So there was no sense of letting go. There was no sense of, oh, I'm giving up on something. There's no giving up, not giving away anything. He knew that he's going for something greater and bigger. So, well, that's the difference, and that's the new perspective that I wanted to add today. uh, till I come up with the next part of his journey and what happened and how he left, and what how his journey of transformation happens until he receives enlightenment. So, which is going to happen tomorrow in episode 4. So if any of this today's information about Siddharth's life, Lord Buddha or Gautama, whoever you call him, his life kind of touched you, do let me know in if you know me personally on my WhatsApp, or by leaving a comment in a Facebook or YouTube. And um, I'd like to hear from you. And I'll see you tomorrow around same time for this episode 4. But before that, I would like to add some beautiful quote, and that is Buddha says, there are only two mistakes one can make along the road to truth: not going all the way or not starting. I repeat, there are only two mistakes one can make along the road to truth. One, that is not going all the way meaning till the end, and not starting. So, well, that's exactly what happens in episode 4 in uh, resharing the stories of Buddha with a new perspective. So, take care and see you tomorrow.